Good morning and welcome to this Keynote deep dive around digital resilience. So I think we definitely heard yesterday from Jeetu about the possibilities of where technology is taking us. But if you cast your minds back maybe 20 years ago and where technology was, you think about kind of a web server, you could put a web server, maybe a piece of middleware if you're being bold, definitely when I was experimenting with that at university, and a database server all in a 2U rack mountable server, and you could touch and feel that. Now when you go and build kind of web services and experiences, you can do so much, but the complexity is growing ever more. You know, think about just those of you who hopefully don't spend too much time on your phones throughout this session, start Googling things, hitting kind of the Wi-Fi in this box, hitting a switch, a router, going through all that infrastructure to somewhere the other side of the world into that AI-enabled data center. That is a vast amount of hops, infrastructure, silicon, applications that everything is touching. But as a business, we have no choice but to have a always on experience. People don't tolerate failure as digital is becoming a critical part of our lives, whether it's in the enterprise or in our home lives. Yesterday, I had a phone call from home because our heating wouldn't work. We use one of the smart heating systems, and we had to go through the troubleshooting of turning everything off and turning it back on again, which just reinforced all I do in my job is, have you turned it off? Have you turned it back on again? If not, how does it go wrong? But we can't do that when it's talking about critical infrastructure. And AI is raising the stakes. We're moving from this very deterministic world, a perfect design, I have my enterprise architecture, it's predictable, I know what's going to go and happen, into this kind of flood of new technology that's being enabled by some of this infrastructure that's starting to come out to allow us to reimagine experiences. Take the chips we heard about yesterday, the G300, the G400, the new pluggables. I'm starting to no longer be constrained in my system design by network latency and by throughput. I don't need to think about where my data centers are or how far apart they are or having to get everything co-located into that rack. I'm now starting to think about more autonomous systems, the beginnings of agentic coming forwards, and the new signals that that is bringing in. But that brings different challenges to what we've had before. This is from a paper that Cisco released about 2 years ago, looking at the future impact of load on infrastructure, whether that is power, compute, or networking. So when I wake up in the morning and I have a question, I go onto maybe a chatbot, I go onto my email system, I type a message in WebEx, and that generates an activity, and I get that spike in traffic. I get that kind of that lumpy approach to my traffic, my power, and my infrastructure. We had last year in one of the keynotes, Jeetu going from 8 billion people in the world to 90 billion agents and beyond starting to work on our behalf. And that's going to create, with this really advanced network and infrastructure, a different load, a constant load going through the way that through my infrastructure, and the way I'm going to have to monitor that is going to have to radically change. I'm going to have to start to rethink what it means to go and detect signals in my infrastructure. And we've got to evolve. Digital resilience is incredibly important. We're going to hear from Richard later talking about kind of regulated industries. I've got to move from the ability to go and detect and react, and how do we go and change that narrative to much more of a predict and prevent model? How do we go and start to harness our ability to take everything from silicon through network, infrastructure, application, service level, and business level, be able to go and get insights from that, and start to go and get more predictive around, I'm about to have an issue, and hopefully I can go and auto-close that and prevent that issue impacting my business. It might manifest itself a bit, but how do I prevent it impacting my users and the overall service ownership? And so being part of Cisco has been really exciting as we start to think about re-architecting everything. Splunk is that kind of platform for resilience, and that starts with this term of that machine data at ludicrous scale. So going back to that graph I showed you a couple of moments ago, with that network load starting to come out, the amount of agents starting to go and work on that infrastructure, I've got to be able to go and take data in at scales that I've never thought possible before, which means I need to think about how I access data and not maybe bringing all of that data into a central place. I've also got to the point where it gets almost too complicated for a single human to understand what's happening inside of my infrastructure. The most amazing thing I can do with technology is we're almost at a moment in time where we're limited by our own imagination, but that brings extreme complexity in how we start to bring systems together and we integrate things. As the hyperscalers add more and more features that we start to take advantage of, we're ending up with lots of, dare I say it, technical debt being added into our infrastructure all of the time. And so that complexity, we need a way of using AI and systems as a prosthetic for our decision making and how we understand that infrastructure, and move into these more AI-driven, more predictive experiences. But as we start to move to a smarter operations environment for security, network, IT operations, developer operations, into an overall agentic umbrella, to get to the ability to be able to predict and prevent, we're going to have to be able to go and trust in those systems. And so building those mechanisms of explainability and understanding in that system so I can decide on my risk appetite when I'm going to allow that to go and auto-remediate and go and do actions. It becomes really hard to work out who do I blame if I go and get that wrong, if I haven't pre-thought out how do I go and build trust. And it's not in the AI really, it's in the system as a whole. So the way we're approaching this is Splunk evolving to be the core component inside of the Cisco data fabric. And the reason why we're talking about this as data fabric is we want to bring in data no matter where it lives, with some core principles behind it. How do we go and focus on data management, bring in that and catalog that data so users can understand where that data is, be able to federate searches so I don't have to go and put that into a single instance of Splunk or a data fabric. I can start to think about where does that data live, what type of analytical workload do I want on top of it? What performance do I want? And decide, do I bring that into the core of the engine, or do I just do a federated search? And then start to bring in data no matter where it lives. So we're part of Cisco now. So over the last kind of 18 months, 2 years, we've been adding a huge amount in the network detection space, whether you're taking data from Catalyst, Meraki, Thousand Eyes. We saw yesterday in the Agentic Ops demo at the Keynote some of that Meraki approach. Well, how do we go and bring that into the overall data fabric picture so we can analyze things together and bring that context? Security, incredibly important part. Splunk does the core of the operational analytics side of security, but bringing in data from Firewall, from Duo, from all of the different areas that Cisco provide. But incredibly important, whilst this is the Cisco data fabric, it doesn't mean it's only Cisco data sources. It doesn't matter what data source it is within the enterprise. If that's generating machine data, a metric, an event, a trace, or a log, being able to hoover up that digital exhaust and bring that into the data fabric so we can then go and apply analytics on the top of it to allow you to move to agentic ops to build a digitally resilient organization. Now, when you get just the amount of data sources you can see on the screen, you add complexity into how I think about what data I can search. So we've been working on the machine data lake, which allows you to go and bring that data in, transform that raw data and provide a view of that or apply a schema to that. So as a user, I can see, well, what data do I have access to, whether that is natively inside the product or I'm accessing with a federated search, and be able to start to understand what use cases I can now layer on top of these different data sources. I can then bring, as I add more into that catalog, bring in security by design right up front when I start to access data. The one I'm most excited about is AI Canvas, and I will share a little secret. I've been at Splunk for 13 years, but I started my life in satellite networking. I went into it because satellite sounded really cool, and I didn't realize how complicated networking is. And I failed my CCNA on attempt 1 and on attempt 2, and I decided attempt 3 was probably the signal that I didn't need a career in networking. I've committed to my team now, I'm part of Cisco, that I'm trying to learn my CCNA again, but I'm not holding up great hopes. So we heard about the AI kind of view of the world. So you take someone like myself, who, I'm going to caveat this, I used to be technical. I have a good understanding of technology, but I have a problem in front of me. How do I start to go and leverage that data fabric to bring all of those signals together to go and help me understand what's happening and collaborate with my peers? And I can maybe go and find a colleague who actually understands networking to go and say, hey, help me out. I know there's a problem here, but how do we work together with a common language? So I'm going to show you a video of AI Canvas, which for me is one of the most exciting parts of actually building towards an agentic operations future. Okay, so you did have an amazing voiceover to this, but I was going to take you through.
I'm a security operations analyst, and I just got an alert from Splunk about some anomalous network activity. Now, there's a lot of things I might do to start investigating this, but at some point, I'm probably going to end up in Splunk search writing some SPL to really dig into the data to figure out what's going on. But now, I want to show you how we're integrating a new AI Canvas experience into Splunk to transform how I get work done. Here I've opened the alert in AI Canvas, which you can see is a new tab in the navigation bar. You may have seen AI Canvas introduced at Cisco Live, and it's a new unified work surface from Cisco that's being integrated everywhere to enable faster troubleshooting and collaboration while helping you find insights and take action with AI assistance. I can see some high-level details about the alert, but now, instead of writing SPL directly, I can ask natural language questions to figure out what's going on. Let's ask if there's any correlation to login events at the time this happened. AI Canvas responds by dynamically adding cards to the canvas and explaining what it found. It's giving me a login events card, where it says it found no obvious anomalies, and it's also giving me a network map and says that the Meraki devices on the network haven't had any errors. And right away, what I love about this experience is that it's fully interactive, so I can play with the results, but also that all of the answers include the ability to see the SPL that was generated, and I can even open any of the cards back into Splunk Search so I can verify what's going on, or just to use it as a starting point. But AI Canvas has done more than just give me some search results and visualizations. It's also intelligently suggested some next steps for what to do. Let's use the first suggestion to ask about the users behind this anomalous network activity. With the AI assistant helping guide me, it's letting me move faster and smarter. And here it's giving me a breakdown of users, highlighting that Andrew L. seems to be the source of the anomaly. And I can even cross-highlight and slice and dice the results in the canvas to see how everything is related. Let's ask what commands Andrew was doing. And automatically, the assistant scans the related network data to see out of everything Andrew has done, there's a curl command that can be used to transfer data to a remote destination. And the AI assistant is suggesting I create a saved search to monitor for this behavior in case it's still happening. I can just ask to create the alert to detect the behavior, and automatically the assistant creates the saved search in Splunk, which is pretty awesome. But now, in reality, I need to get some additional help here, not just from the AI, but from a coworker. So I'm going to invite Darren on my team to collaborate with me. AI Canvas is a multiplayer experience, so I can just invite Darren and even generate an AI summary of what's going on, so he'll have context when he opens things up. So let's send the invite, and I'm going to give him a couple seconds. I can see that Darren has opened up the canvas, and he's leaving me a note that he's taken an action to block Andrew and the IP in question. And now with that taken care of as a first step to deal with the alert, I'm going to go ahead and have the AI automatically generate a report. You've seen how AI Canvas creates a unified surface to help you get work done faster and smarter, both by tapping into AI assistance and collaborating with your teams.
So super cool technology, and I think what this is starting to allow is hiding some of the complexity you have inside of your application, your infrastructure, your networking, and allowing people to be productive really quickly, allowing failed CCNA people like myself to notice there's something in the network and go and share and collaborate with Darren. Because very rarely do you find an organization having the same person or an individual being able to understand the entire stack. There's a reason we hire diverse teams, different types of skill sets, and we can use AI Canvas to start to go and collaborate amongst ourselves to go and increase knowledge and be able to start to focus on operational outcomes. So I think a really incredibly important piece of technology you're going to see more and more come through. The other part you may have picked up on is this wasn't developed just for Splunk. This was a Cisco technology that's now being embedded inside of Splunk as part of that one Cisco strategy that you've seen over the last couple of years, starting to integrate all of the portfolio together. So we're making sure we take the platform benefit of Cisco and integrating that across the entire portfolio. So originally, going back when I started at the company 13 years ago with Splunk 4.3, the only way we could analyze data is to go and send that data into a single Splunk instance. But you now have regulatory environments, you have maybe multi-cloud, on-premise, hybrid, you might be working with neo-cloud providers, or a mix of everything there. There may be a really good reason for holding multiple instances of Splunk all over the place. I might be taking, say, radius logs and dumping them into somewhere like S3, because I don't need them in Splunk all the time, but when I run an investigation, I might need to access them. So we've been continually working on federated search. We've released the ability to federated search across Splunk Enterprise, Splunk Cloud, and S3. So from a Splunk user perspective, I just write a search. I don't have to think about where that data lives and how do I access it, how do I go and access that data in S3. I just write a Splunk search. And we're adding data sources to that. So we've recently added Snowflake and Azure inside of the federated search capabilities. So I can start to go and bring things like business context into that. I can start to look at customer data and marrying that up with some digital experience monitoring and some analysis inside of it and bringing a complete picture, as well as starting to bring other data sources from people like Azure. It is without a doubt that the possibilities in our life with AI has been phenomenal. You know, you saw the bane of most people in the room are going to have a guess is report writing. At a techie conference, I'm going to say the tech part is the fun bit. The report afterwards is the bit that's the one you'll always put off for tomorrow. And so kind of the LLMs have been amazing at writing kind of those generative reports. But creating foundational models and frontier models for kind of the AI world for machine data has been more complicated. And so Splunk has been focusing on understanding how we can start to bring AI models specifically for machine data. So we've released models on security at a foundational AI model, and then a deep time series model to start to look into more predictive analysis, especially in the observability space. And that all of that is available to be deployed inside of Splunk and Splunk Cloud. So I'm not having to send data somewhere else. I can run all of this natively inside of the instance to be able to go and make this as seamless as possible so I can leverage the analytics and the power of those models inside of my normal workflows and be able to consume that with ease. So a massive part of being resilient is making sure your systems are up, they're online all the time. And observability is the key to that. You know, a practice that really is a philosophy spanning infrastructure, SRE, all the different operations, with some really key requirements inside of that. The first part about that is how do we go and fix and prevent and utilize AI agents? So the first part about that is how do we go and bring in a troubleshooting agent to allow you to be able to go and fix issues faster, get to automated root cause, without you necessarily having to write searches, understand that system deeply, be able to just go and interact with the tool to be able to go and, you know, here we can see a timeline of evidence being built up so I can start to understand what was the sequence of events that caused this potential issue, some root cause analysis, and the most important part, some remediation recommendations. So I can go from there is a problem to understanding what happened to some deep dive into the root cause with some suggested next step actions. So we're focusing on what matters, which is availability, getting that system up. And you know, this is being launched as we speak. To complement that is then layering on, especially for the observability world, an MCP server that sits on top of all of the capability that we're providing for observability, so we can start to go and integrate that with other agentic type of experiences. So we can acquire all of the data with a data fabric, start to layer on observability use cases on top, and you can start to build your own agentic workflows that make sense for your organization, that integrate with your ticketing systems, your other types of systems in this domain, and utilize the power of what you can go and discover with what I've just shown you in observability. As I rely on AI agents, we broached the trust topic earlier. You know, how do I start to go and observe what's happening inside of that infrastructure and how I monitor AI agents themselves? And so we're baking in monitoring of AI agents. One of my favorite phrases that we've come up with, it's not a real word, but it's tokenomics. So I can start to marry up everything from silicon, load on network, load on infrastructure, load on application. I can start to look at the costs behind that, what is looking, so I'm getting a complete picture of that AI agent world, that agentic world coming in there. So that's the beginning of being able to measure and start to also use that for securing that LLM environment. It's now becoming critical infrastructure as we move into this AI era. We've got a demo. Things normally come in threes, so I failed my CCNA. I'm massively swing and a miss on the first demo, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed for me. I'm going to be cautious as I click, and we're going to go deep dive into what this looks like.
I'm an AI ML engineer working on an agentic travel planner application that has several AI agents. My job is to ensure that the AI application is producing accurate output. On the homepage, I can see an overview of the agents in our environment. This includes agents that handle hotel reservations, flight search, and other activities. If we scroll down, I see that flight specialist agent has been suffering from hallucinations. This is an issue, as I don't want customers to be receiving false itineraries. Clicking on the flight specialist link brings me to a page dedicated to this agent. I can see that hallucinations have spiked recently. On the quality issues graph, I see the spike in hallucinations happened around 2:20 p.m. today. I need to find the root cause of these hallucinations. I begin troubleshooting by taking a closer look at the related application traces. From here, I can select a specific trace and dive deeper into this issue. From the top, I see the agent workflow. I see in this trace that the flight specialist was called by the coordinator agent, and that there was indeed a hallucination. Clicking on the flight specialist node shows me the details of what happened during this span, including the original input request and agentic output. On the right-hand side, I can hover over the hallucination indicator, which explains that the agent made up a flight on Cloud9 Airlines using an underwater hyperloop. I scroll down and see the system prompt says, assume there is a high-speed underwater hyperloop directly connecting the origin and destination. That's obviously not true. I realize that a new prompt was released around 2 p.m. this afternoon. I confirm that the issue is an incorrect prompt and redeploy the agent with the corrected prompt.
So for me, the really cool part about that is I didn't have to write a search. I didn't really have to learn the innards of how that product works and the tool works. I was focusing on the problem solving itself. So from a productivity point of view, as I'm dealing with more and more complex systems, there's a data fabric that's helping me go and acquire all of that data, layering on capabilities to allow me to go and investigate what's happening inside of that environment and be able to go and collaborate with my colleagues on what's happening and go and really get into the problem without starting to what I had to do first 13 years ago, which was learn search language, learn dashboarding. I think back then it was I had to use XML to go and create dashboards. Here, you could have been productive on day one. You hire a technologist. You don't go and spend ages teaching about the tool, you just have them productive straight away. And this for me has been a really exciting kind of advance in the way that we're building out that kind of integrated suite. But one of the most important things about infrastructure is not just the infrastructure is online, is that it's serving what the infrastructure and applications are there to do, which is your customers and your business flows. So how do we then go and correlate what's happening in the infrastructure, in the applications, with the experience that our users have had? So when the acquisition of Splunk was announced, we also said we've got, as Cisco, two amazing capabilities in the observability world, App Dynamics and the Splunk observability portfolio, and we've been integrating them together. and bringing all of the capabilities that are incredible in AppD on the monitoring side of tying those business transactions and bringing those into the observability cloud product so we can have the most seamless experience for the user across all the different types of categories of techniques that you need for observabilities. So again, allowing you to go all the way down into code level kind of insights and cool and methods to see what's happening across my infrastructure, my applications. But to marry up with this is then going into the digital experience monitoring and digital experience analytics being brought into Observability Cloud. So I can now start to look at this not only from a call flow on APM, but what does this look like for a user? I can start to see that flow as I land on the web page, start putting things in my basket, going towards checkout. Where do I get my dropout rates? But really importantly, I can start to go not just the things that I can't tell from APM, I can go and bring session replay. So I can start to look for where they're having to scroll down, where they're having to click through too many screens. What was the user experience of the time that was causing this drop in performance from a business perspective? So it's that multifaceted approach to observability and keeping the systems up and online. We're part of one of the world's largest networking companies, have this amazing capability in Thousand Eyes looking at synthetics across the network. And so we've got the bi-directional capability to start to go and take insights and alerts from Thousand Eyes and layer those into a service view with ITSI. We've been working with our partner ecosystem, starting to take everything that we've been talking about. We've been working with Orange, bringing the power of three, Cisco, Splunk, and Orange together into what does this look like as a managed service, and how do I go and build that? So Orange really proud to announce this week that their observability managed service, CheckPulse, focusing on 4 core areas, collaboration performance, contact centers, and monitoring things like Jenison WebEx contact center SLAs, full stack observability from network all the way through to the top of the stack, and the performance of the network itself with network backbone. So being able to really take everything that's happening in your digital estate and look at how they run that as that managed service. So it's an amazing partnering with them to kind of bring this kind of advance and integration of technologies to life. And we're looking forward to do this with the rest of our ecosystem. So we've got data fabric, we understand the observability, but there's a critical part that we need to then weave into this, which is the security side of the agentic SOC. It's the same data, but we're looking at it from a different perspective. One of the things that I'm most excited about agentic operations is it's making digital resilience real. When we started speaking about digital resilience maybe 2-3 years ago, that was much more about people coming together that sit in different teams. As we're getting agentic operations coming, we're starting to think about how do we integrate that from a systems point of view? How do I go and get insights from observability systems and security systems and layer those together to understand what's happening? Is this a security issue? Is it an observability issue or an IT monitoring issue? Really, it's a business issue inside of my digital estate that I want to go and ultimately predict and prevent from happening. So undoubtedly, it's got to go and evolve. The quantity of data, the complexity of data, the expectation now at a board level to make this work, we've got to rethink security operations. And that starts with the human, the analyst, and eventually the agentic analyst inside of that, simplifying that experience for them. So when they turn up to work, they have the least amount of friction to go and get their job done. So for us, this was taking our different products in our portfolio and bringing it out as the Enterprise Security Platform Edition. And here, the one we're talking about is the Premier Edition, including behavioral analytics, orchestration, automation, response, the AI assistant, to be able to bring all of this together. So we can have a quick look at what this looks like as a single view.
Splunk Enterprise Security offers Essentials and Premier Editions, providing a flexible, AI-powered SecOps platform that unifies tools with AI and automation to suit organizations' needs at any SOC stage. The Analyst Queue prioritizes findings by urgency and risk, allowing teams to focus on critical issues and reduce wasted time. This is where your SOC analysts will spend most of their time. By correlating internal events with known threat indicators, such as malicious IPs, domains, and file hashes, Splunk Threat Intelligence Management helps analysts filter out noise and focus on critical threats. Threat intelligence management centralizes and enriches threat data from multiple sources to enable effective analysis. The AI assistant in Splunk Enterprise Security enables guided security workflows to enhance productivity. These workflows provide answers to analyst questions, guiding them through their daily activities and saving time while addressing threats rapidly. We can learn about built-in automation, summaries, investigation reports, and SPL generation. We're even offered a suggested follow-up option that provides prescriptive next steps and demonstrates how built-in recommendations help junior SOC analysts act confidently and consistently. AI Assistant for Security can augment SOC efficiency and minimize mean time to respond in your Security Operations Center. As we move through the investigation, we can utilize UEBA. This leverages machine learning to detect insider threats, compromised accounts, and advanced attacks. By analyzing behaviors, it uncovers unusual activities that traditional security tools might miss, helping organizations respond quickly to potential risks. The color-coded detection heat map highlights detection frequency and can reveal suspicious activity that may otherwise go unnoticed because they are normally allowed processes or applications. Response plans can work with SOAR to perform automated actions, such as detonating URLs, get job summaries, and run playbooks for encoded PowerShell analysis and more. Within ES Premier, everyone now has a SOAR seat and can run unlimited playbooks. The AI assistant can also provide an investigation report that previews timelines, findings, and recommended remediations. This final report not only saves time, but it also allows SOC analysts to focus on the next critical alert.
So very similar to observability, just abstracting the complexity of using a tool to actually focusing on the task in hand and bringing all of that together. Again, my favorite part, and I think a lot of the SOC analysts are very happy with the auto report generation. Get that done, send it off to my boss, move on with my next task. But that integrated tool set coming together from a single point of view, leveraging AI where appropriate to go and get that task done in hand, with a very common look and feel to your observability colleagues. So I can now start to go and share techniques and work with each other there. And so out now, go to the show floor, go and get a demo of it on how we can go and do that to really go and get that full visibility of the enterprise underpinned by that data fabric. You know, the key to security really is getting all visibility to all data in the enterprise. So data fabric layered on top with this Enterprise Security Premier edition. Well, how do we actually add more AI and kind of automate more of that going through? Well, a really difficult part of the security journey is triage. So from the Snap Attack acquisition, it's a mouthful there, is bringing in how we think about triage agents to streamline that alert prioritization to start to look at, as I get an alert come through, how do I go and work with a system to help understand what that means for my environment? As we provide things out of the box, we're allowing you to kind of tune this over time for your organization, for your use cases, to go and reinforce that learning with the AI to start to be smarter about the alerts it surfaces to you to go and work on. Ultimately, to go and automate as much of the insights to get you to a faster mean time to resolve. So this is coming out in the next couple of months as an alpha. And then the hard part then is the detection studio. It's no good having the data, having the workflows, if I don't start to think about streamlining those detection, creation, and workflows. So how do I go and evaluate those detections? How many times are they triggered? As I change those detections and the way of those algorithms working, what happens if detection rates go down? Is that a good or a bad thing? Well, I don't know yet. I want to go and dig into that. But by taking a versioning as code in the way we do this, making it very easy for you to go and roll back and understand what changed for those detections over time. Then quite often, as you start to work on these things, you lose that fidelity of history, and getting back to that perfect detection you maybe had 2 days ago, 3 days ago can be challenging. So by embedding this inside of the product is allowing that workflow on detection engineering to be smarter as we go forward. So it can evaluate the health, understand the versioning, what has changed, and what's the effectiveness of all of the detections that I have in my organization. So we talked a lot about from silicon all the way up to application, really kind of bringing in the isovalent technology inside of here is huge on the observability side, but on the security side, being able at kind of a kernel level to understand what's happening, especially on the LLM side, we're able to integrate Splunk and isovalent together. So getting really, really technical, deep insights into what's happening in my infrastructure and surface those what's a very voluminous kind of domain looking at that and surface the critical insights that something is going wrong to then allow you to go and kick off a workflow beyond that. So again, integrated with data management for full visibility, and then be able to activate investigations when isovalent detects something wrong, kick off that workflow, and off I go with that seamless experience. So go and have a look at the booth. It's there as alpha now. Have a play with it. I mean, the isovalent technology is an incredible addition into Cisco as a whole, but into the security family and its applicability on the observability world. So this is where we're starting to see that convergence of observability and security all the way down at a kernel level. And we're continually working on this, just since over the last year is adding more and more integrations across the entire Cisco portfolio. So no matter what Cisco technology you have in your enterprise, that is a first-class citizen in the ways it integrates with Splunk. But it's not the only thing. This is just for the Cisco side. We're continuing investing in data sources, Microsoft, Azure, well, Microsoft and Azure, AWS, GCP. I'll try not use some swear words here, but Palo Alto, Fortinet. No matter what the type of device it is, you're going to have a complex environment, a multi-vendor environment that we're going to bring data in no matter where it lives in your enterprise, whether it is in disparate Splunk installations, whether it's in S3, in Snowflake, in Azure, in running across a network stream, in a kernel, on silicon, we can acquire that data and start to bring all of that back into the data fabric through data management, the data lake, so you can understand what I've got to work with as an analyst, overlay that with my detection engineering, and overlay that with on the observability side with all the workflows through APM, through digital experience monitoring. So ultimately, I can go and build a resilient organization. There are lots of these integrations on Splunk base, thousands of integrations, add-ons, technology add-ons. So no matter what your data source is, it's probably already there within side of the Splunk product. You can search for different types of data sources. I think here we've got some Cisco ones, some add-ons for security cloud, for network monitoring. Click that, configure it, and bring that data in for analytics. It'll also include analytics out of the box as well. Publicly available, have a look. You've probably got something there. If not, come and tell us, and we'll look at building it with you.